For those of you who don't know, the second season of The Backlog is coming to Snap to this fall. It's a series in which I play and review games that I own but haven't really played, while also commenting on the state of the video game industry based on what is presented to me in certain games. Well, in Season 1, I've noticed that about half the games are from console generations prior to the 7th, i.e. the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and the Wii. And while playing retro games, oh god, is the PS2 retro now? I feel old. Can introduce them to an audience who only grew up with a 360 or PS3 or Wii, and get them interested in more video game history, it can also prompt some people to wonder why I don't cover more modern games, especially on the Wii U, PS4, and Xbox One. Well, for one thing, I don't have a PS4, at least not yet. Later this year when the PS4 Pro and Kingdom Hearts 2.8 come out though, you can expect to see less of me. Second, while yes I have covered at least one game on both the Wii U and Xbox One, one of them was an HD remaster of a GameCube game and the other was more of a throwback game. Third, and this is probably the most important, I've sort of become a bit disenfranchised with modern gaming and the modern video game industry, at least for the most part. I just dumped $500 into Frankensteining my PC to run newer games better than the current consoles, and I still keep up with what's going on and what games are coming out, so I'm not totally out of the loop. But when developers and publishers regularly release half-baked, buggy games, push DLC and season passes, and disappoint me on a level at which I lose motivation to work on a long-running machinima series, then you can expect me to feel a bit scorned. Also, look at the prices of new games. No, I'm not saying $60 is too much or anything like that, but whenever a new game comes out, at least on console, it launches at $60 and over the next couple months drops its price dramatically. I bought Halo 5 on launch day for $60 and soon traded it into GameStop, something I normally never do because fuck GameStop. Now, just under a year later, not only is the standard edition of Halo 5 going for about $22 on Amazon, but the limited edition is going for $25, originally about $80, and the legendary edition is going for less than $100, and it was originally about $250. EA's Star Wars Battlefront is only worth about $30 now. I think I've seen it for $20 in other places. The worst that I've seen is Doom, which launched this past May and now only a few short months later is going for $30 on Amazon and at GameStop. The only exception I've seen for this is any given first-party Nintendo game for the Wii U and sometimes the 3DS. Perhaps it's because Nintendo doesn't overstock their titles and as a result they actually retain their value. That's probably why their Nintendo Selects line seems to mostly reissue games of theirs which have gone out of print. People want these games and stock is diminished to a point where scalpers overcharge for them on eBay. I grew up with the Sega Genesis, a Game Boy Color, a Game Boy Advance, and a PS2. Back in those days, when a game came out, it had to be done. 100%, no question, no patches, no DLC, done. While DLC and patches did come around in the form we know them on the original Xbox, they didn't come into full swing until the Xbox 360, and halfway through that generation, corporate greed really hit the consumer hard, stripping out major bits of content to sell later a la Mass Effect 3, punishing consumers who buy games used by making them pay an extra $10 for an online pass, putting out season passes to encourage people to get copious amounts of DLC, sometimes without knowing what the DLC will even be and only at a slightly reduced price in most cases, releasing games in buggy, sometimes almost completely unplayable states, and putting review embargoes in place to prevent that information from getting to the consumer so publishers can safely secure their money, constantly putting out the same low-quality schlock every year and expecting people to just go with it and blaming irrelevant factors if they don't meet ludicrously high sales projections, instigating audience apathy from pumping out the same schlock, pushing pre-orders and stripping out content from the game to make them exclusively into pre-order bonuses, microtransactions in $60 games, regardless if they're single-player or multiplayer. Holy shit, why would anyone question why I have a problem with the modern video game industry? And on top of all that, this current console generation is the first one that's actually been beaten out both in power and affordability by PCs. Adding to that the fact that the Xbox One and PS4 are built with the same architecture as a PC with less power and lacking the convenience of previous generations of consoles, i.e. pop-in disc, play game, and developers and consumers alike feel like these new consoles are more limiting than they should be, prompting Nintendo to scrap the Wii U in favor of the NX, which is only 6 months out and we still know nothing about it, Microsoft to announce the Xbox Scorpio as a substantial hardware upgrade able to play games natively in 4K coming out late next year, and most recently Sony to reveal the PS4 Pro coming out in November that merely upscales games to 4K, has no 4K Blu-ray compatibility, and is $100 more expensive than the currently available Xbox One S, which actually has both of those things without being Microsoft's big step up for 4K. Now, don't get me wrong, publishers, developers, and console manufacturers alike do learn from their mistakes and try to do better. Online passes quickly died out due to the backlash against them. Ubisoft actually decided to take their time to make sure Assassin's Creed Syndicate worked so they wouldn't have another disaster like with Unity, and are taking this year off from the series, at least in game form, for the sake of the movie. Microsoft was trying to push the Xbox One as an all-in-one entertainment device with gaming as a bit of an afterthought. That is, until major backlash came around and they kicked out Don Matrick, replaced him with Phil Spencer, who actually has a passion for gaming and managed to turn the Xbox One around in no time. Sony realized how badly they fucked up the PS3 initially and actually made the PS4 profitable and game-oriented from the get-go. DICE listened to fan demand for a World War I Battlefield game and went out of their way to convince a reluctant Electronic Arts to let them do it. Pro-consumer progress still gets made, it's just much slower than the anti-consumer progress. Still though, I yearn for the simpler days when all you did was plop the card into the slot or put the disc in the tray and played. No mandatory internet connections, no missing content you have to buy later as DLC, no game-breaking bugs that you have to wait to get fixed, and a complete experience at the end of the day. But that's just not the world we live in anymore. I'm hoping that the industry finds its way again soon because, with the way things are heading, we may be looking at another industry crash just like in 1983. But as we know, history tends to repeat itself, and this industry sometimes has difficulty thinking about long-term consequences when there's lots of money to be made in the short term.
We've got to have money.